All right. So what I'm left with here, guys, is, let's see, November, December, January, February, and March. The reason I did this is because, if I turn my white overlay off, we already made a windrows that I'm going to bring in soon to associate with the summer months. But now I'm analyzing here for my winter months my other strategy, which is passive warming. And that reminds me, I made a mistake yesterday, or last class, when I called this active strategies. It's actually passive strategies. So I'm going to quickly just change that and correct it. So you can just double click on the text and change it. So passive strategies. Oh, whoops, I deleted something. There we go. All right. So we created a windrows that I'm going to produce in order to communicate how I'm going to address cooling in the summer. We'll get to that. But what we have now is a diagram that I'm producing in order to identify my passive heating strategy in the winter months, which is letting sunlight in. So you've all probably been introduced to the awning or the overhang of a building that is just long enough that it blocks out the very high angle summer sun, but in the winter it's short enough that it allows winter light in. Make sense? So this is going to allow us to identify graphically the time throughout the day that we need to be allowing sunlight in, for the winter at least. And it's much more narrow than would be, the summer, because the spread is much wider. So with this overlay on, we have a couple of choices, and I'm thinking about this graphically. I could use more of an overlay to just white out the areas that are not of interest, but that's not really super communicative. What I want to do is use line work. So I'm basically just going to draw a curve on either side that is going to delineate the time of day over time that we're going to want to allow sunlight in. And it's going to be subtle. It's not going to be super obvious, particularly in the morning. So to make it a little more clear, I'm thinking about this myself, and I think the radiation overlay line work is a little too thick. I want that to be really thin, in fact, so I'm going to go to like a 0.25. That's too thin. Let's try 0.5. Okay. That might be okay. Yeah, 0.75 I think is going to work for me, something like that. So you can still see and feel the weight of the graph behind, and it's not too overbearing that the line work of the graph really pops too much. And then what I'm going to do is create another layer, and this layer I'm going to call, let's call it sun range, I guess. And for this, I'm pretty much just going to draw a straight line. In reality, it would be more of a curved line, right, if you're going to measure the graph exactly. But I'm going to approximate the time frame that I want to allow sunlight in throughout the year, throughout this portion of the year. So I'm going to go to the line segment tool, and I'll start with something that's a little bit thicker, like a 3-point, the one that I accidentally did last time. And so zooming in on the area of interest, whoop, get a little closer here. So zooming in on the area of interest, what I want to do is figure out where I can cut off the sun what's the way I want to say this? I want to figure out where the effective heating is going to stop on average across this entire time frame. So in reality, you know how to do a scatter plot in math class or anything like that? Have you ever done a scatter plot and then found the average point line thing? Does anybody need to see it? I'll just pull it up real fast. Not Excel. So this is kind of a scatter plot with an average line, right? We are going to approximate that here, and it's very difficult to do, and it's also very inexact. So I can pretty much just kind of anchor a point somewhere right about here where it makes sense. I might even pull it down one right there and click and drag, and I'm going to pull it to the upper end over here in the summer, or as we're approaching the spring rather. So I'll just do a line that's kind of like that, and I'll do the same thing over here, approximating all the way. It looks like I could probably pull it back a little bit further on this one, and I'm going to pull down to about there. And then just to, cap it off, I'm going to put a connection at the end and a connection back here. So I'll show you a clarification. If I select all, I can change the color so you'll really see what it looks like. Let me change the color to something off the wall for a second so you really see it. Whoops. Why is it not changing? Okay. Whatever you say. There we go. All right. Okay, so this is the area that I've identified as when I want to passively heat my space. In fact, I'm looking at this corner right here, and it might actually need to extend a little bit further down. So if you want to edit a line, I don't think I introduced this to everyone yet. If you want to edit a line, notice how it puts a box around the whole thing. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I forget how sensitive it is when you zoom in. All right, so notice how it puts a stretch box around the whole thing. All you have to do with a line is grab the corner and just pull it to the new location that you want it to terminate. That part's pretty simple. And then you can just extend the other one to meet it. In reality, this might actually be more like this. That looks a little better. Okay. So I know that I don't want green. I'm going to actually leave it as white, I believe. And the thing that I'm going to do a little differently here is what do I want to do differently? I might fill it. I'm going to try filling it. It might not look good. So real quick, I'm just going to do a K for Live Paint tool, and I'll mark that out. And I'm going to try filling it with like a red. So I'll start with this. Okay, and fill it with red. I just want to see what happens here because I'm not sure what the result is going to be. You could do like a 50% overlay there. I don't know that I'm a fan of that. So I zoom out, I take a look at it. What do you guys think? What's that?
I can't read it.
Yeah, can't really tell with that, huh? All right. Let's make it no fill. We'll keep it white. Go to 100% opacity. I'm going to go thicker with like a 5-point. And let's try it with stroke. So if we change the stroke here, I'm going to change my corners to miter join. Like that. You won't be able to really tell the corners all that much, but miter join is a little cleaner. And I'll make this a dashed line. In fact, I'm kind of happy with the scale of the dash line that it defaulted me to. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm just thinking through it. Yeah, you just click the checkbox for dash line.
On the right side, go on the strokes.
All right, so I'm looking at this here, and I can imagine just delineating this with some annotation, some simple annotation. So my thought is, if I'm just going to title this one, I could just add some text into the actual box here or something like that, and say passive heating or something like that, or sun. Just call it sun. I don't want to call it sun range. I don't like what that's called. I'll think about that one for a little bit. But anyway, so you can try a few of these things out, and I'll tell you what, once you try a couple of these strategies, it always prints different. So what might look good on the page might not look good when you print it. So you got to try a few of them out and print some tests. So I'm going to go with this one for now. I just need to do the same thing on the other side. So I'll do that real fast. Go back to the same layer, line, this, stroke 5 should be good. Except this one looks a little different. So I'm going to go from here to about there. There to there. Here to, say, there. And there to there. All right, so these are my two diagrams. Something that I want to do here, and you'll see kind of how this ties in when I get the windrows diagram out. Let me select everything and deselect that. I'm going to pull this whole thing down to the bottom because my windrows is going to go above the page. And so what I want to happen is I want to associate the black bar with my windrows diagram. And I want to associate the red bar range with my sun range diagram that's below. So my thought is, and I'm just going to try this one out and see how it communicates. My thought is that I'm just going to show the connection with a dotted line, essentially, that it has a datum that's going to connect the two. So I'll create a new layer and call it datum. I don't expect you guys to be fully caught up with me right now. I'm just speaking through. Good, that's good. So I'll just do a datum line. I'm going to say a 3-point datum line. And it's as simple as just right along this green tracking line, you can just kind of click and drag a line like that and change the stroke so that it's something interesting. So for me, I'm going to do my dash as 1 point, and then I'm just going to change the gap so that it fits and makes it sort of look like an interesting dotted line that connects them. So 6 is probably... Actually, I don't really like the dots very much. Let's try 1 point. That might be okay. Something like that. So you can just copy and paste them over, drop them in place.
You moved both graphs down, right?
Yes. Yeah, now they're both down at the page. Now I'm not going to put a dotted line underneath this one because I'm going to connect it to the windrows diagram that I'm going to put above. And we'll do the same thing over here. Oh, it looks like my diagram's a little little off in terms of size. Let me get in there and stretch that stuff. Hold on. If you guys had the same problem, you'll need to do this too. I just made sure I selected everything, so that way I can kind of just yank it a little bit further so that it matches. This is an instance where you're going to have to approximate. This won't be an exact exercise at this stage. Okay. Alright, so now I got to go back and get these things back in line. So I want October, the delineation to match, so I'll pull that to there. This one needs to go one over. Good. Cool. All right, so do you guys see the visual connection there between the two of them?
Yes.
Might be hard to see it on screen, but what I'm trying to get you to think of here, can you see it, Wes?
No.
You can't see it? Like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get you to think of is using line types to communicate more. Not so much like an arrow, right? Don't be so symbolic about it, but if you break something down to points, lines, and planes, you pretty much can communicate anything you need to without using symbolism or text. Sort of, kind of. Sometimes you got to take a leap. So I'm going to clean this up over here for the rescaling. It looks like I messed something up there as well. So yeah, the next video we're going to bring in the windrows, and then that'll pretty much finish off this diagram.
How did you get your points to be that tiny?
I made them a size of 1 stroke. So the stroke size, that's an important question. Yeah, the stroke size is what's going to determine, like if I make it a 6 point, yeah, that's what it looks like.